I want this evening to speak to you briefly about, not necessarily just about the book, the Besorah according to COVID-19, but really to speak to you of what is happening right now in the world. So you will, number one, not be worried, not be concerned, but understand that we are going and we are seeing prophecy fulfilled in an expedited fashion in front of ourselves. Today I titled the teaching, and by the way, I really apologize. I had no idea. I should have communicated better. Maybe if I do it next time, I will have the slides for you. But if anybody wants those slides, feel free to reach out to me. And it's a little bit difficult because I use so much Hebrew without the slides, but I'm just going to adjust some things in the teaching that hopefully will be appropriate for you to follow with me. I want to start and walk backward with you for a moment and tell you a little bit on a personal level how things have been unfolding for us. I'm the founder of Ahavat Ammi Ministries. Used to be called Ahavat Ammi Synagogue back in 2006. Our synagogue has been right here in Arlington, actually. It started a couple of years before that when I found the Jewish Messiah, and I started to meet in my house, and then it's turned to Ahavat Ammi Synagogue. And then in 2013, when I released The Return of the Kosher Pig, that became a major book internationally, God sent me out to establish this international ministries that is called Ahavat Ammi International. Now the name changed again, and it's called now Ahavat Ammi International. And in 2014, the Lord spoke to me about starting to raise a lot of disciples. He told me to do that. So I said, well, what's that supposed to mean? He says, I want you to build a yeshiva. So in 2014, we launched a yeshiva. And here we are 7 years later, and we're with 1,000 students in 54 countries, including even Arab countries, where people are studying Torah. It is nothing short of miracle. And I ask myself a question, why? Why now, God? What is different about this season right now? At the beginning of the year, when the pandemic hit, we have a major headquarters in Rome, in Italy, in the Italy area. And when the pandemic hit, the week before the pandemic hit, I was supposed to be in Rome for a major international conference. That is our largest European event. Everything was prepared, ready, catered food, everything. People were coming from all over Europe to this one event that we do once a year, right there in Rome. And as you recall, when the pandemic hit, except to China, the second area that it hit really hard was north of Italy. And the majority of the people that were coming, they were coming from North Italy to this event. So I'm literally with my luggage, everything packed, all of our staff from all over the world, including Israel, ready to fly into Rome. And I said, what are we to do? There's so much money involved here, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. God, what am I to do? I prayed. And God says, cancel everything. It's simply, and we did not understand in January the magnitude of the virus. But when I went to the Lord says, cancel it. Just don't go. Don't go. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about anything. Don't go. I didn't know even what's going to happen next. 1 week after this took place, I lost my voice completely. I mean, when I say completely, I mean completely. To the point I start going to the doctors, they start sticking things in my throat, they're running tests, they're doing scopes, and they don't understand what's wrong with me. They don't understand what is going on and why I'm losing my voice. And while I'm losing my voice, I sit outside and I cry to God. And I say, God, what's happening to me? And I'm dying. And I was in such a pain in my throat that I really had a hard time even breathing. And to the point, nobody know what's going on. And going to the doctor again and again and again. When that took place, I looked to the heavens very early. And I got such a vision, a clarity of the pandemic that I cannot express to you without sounding like a madman or crazy. Those of you who have heard me teach for many, many years, you know that I don't use the Lord in such a way that the word I'm giving you is from the Lord. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's Rabbi Shapira. Sometimes Rabbi Shapira thinks he's the Lord, but he's not the Lord. It's Rabbi Shapira. And it's true for all of us. But I can tell you something. It was the Lord. It was the Lord. It was clearly. And I continued to suffer for the 6 months with not able to speak. For 6 months. Now in these 6 months, while there is no voice, God spoke to us and said, bring everybody, every nation, tribe, and tongue. Bring them for 3 events. And I said, what do you want us to do, God? He said, number 1, bring the world to celebrate the Passover. Number 2, bring the world to celebrate Shavuot, Pentecost. And number 3, he says, bring the world to celebrate Rosh Hashanah. I'm like, what's that all about, God? I don't understand this. He says, shut up and do it. So our entire staff put together 3 publications. One for Rosh Hashanah, one for Shavuot, and one for Pesach. Translated in 13 languages. And we held a worldwide event. Virtually. In Shavuot, we saw 100,000 views on a single event. 100,000 views. We have tens and tens of thousands of people who coming to celebrate the feasts in such a way, and it was unbelievable to me. I didn't understand what is happening. It's going to be connecting to the lost voice here in a second. Finally, I keep on seeing those vision for 6 months, barely even being able to communicate it to my staff, or to my wife, or to my child, or really just terrible. I was sure that I'm going to die any day. It was that terrible. And then I picked up a pen and I started to write what God says to me. The next day, after picking up the pen and starting to write what God said to me, the very next morning, my voice came back. The very next day. I went run to the doctor and said, what's up with that? He didn't even prescribe me anything. What's going on here? He says, I am at a loss for words. I don't understand that. This is, you have experienced a miracle. I understand it and you understand it. God wanted me to see what I needed to see so that I can write it down and release it. In a period of 6 intensive weeks, we produced over 1,000 pages of Revelation. Can you imagine writing almost 1,000 pages in 6 weeks? When the book was finished, I said I need to give it to a person to validate what I'm saying. But I cannot give it to the Messianic Jewish crowd. They wouldn't understand. There's no way Messianic Judaism can really understand this. So I decided to give the book to somebody else. I cannot rely on Christians to understand either, by the way. I gave it to an Orthodox rabbi. one of a close friends of mine, an Orthodox rabbi who is not Messianic, nevertheless, a regular Orthodox rabbi. And I told him, this is what happened. I told him the story I just told you. And I say, read it. And tell me what you think. Am I crazy to release it to the world? He came back. He called me. His wife contacted me, the Rebbetzin. And he says, God wrote this book. It's been divinely inspired. And I am, as an Orthodox Jew, so moved by God that I'm going to write an endorsement to your book about Yeshua, and I want you to put it in the front cover. Friends, this has not happened in the history of Messianic Judaism. At the very first page of the book, you see a letter in Hebrew and in English with the signature of the rabbi, a highly respected rabbi who yet to know fully Yeshua, and I say fully because I think God is already moving, has said, and he wrote, every Jew in the world needs to read this. And now, because of that, the book was released 3 days before the election. Many Jewish people all over the world, specifically, we can tell you there are 4 rabbis right now who are already reading this book right now, are being moved by God. Because what is happening here in the COVID-19 is a message that is carrying and crossing any boundary, any geography, any color, any race. It's a message that we have to understand today. And most importantly, take the actions that God has for us. Do I expect Messianic Jews and Messianic believers as a whole to understand the book? I don't know. I don't know, I hope so. Because the book written for Christians, Messianic Jews, normative Jews. And I hope today that this message resonates with you. In Erev Pesach, the one that is coming, Pesach in a couple of months, there is going to be the 3rd volume. The Return of the Kosher Pig was the very first volume. This is the 2nd one. Like I told you, I wrote 1,000 pages. So I released 550. I felt like if I release 1,000 all at once, nobody will want to buy the book. Nobody will want to get the book. The very first day that we released the book, it's being translated right now to Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, French, Korean, German. The Spirit of God is indeed moving. When you look at yourself and you ask yourself a question, why am I here? How did I came to the Messianic movement? Specifically those who are not Jewish, you probably have to look back and say, something supernatural happened in my life, right? To bring me to understanding who is Yeshua. Explain to me the Jewishness of Yeshua. Those things happened, but now God is about to reveal to us the purpose behind this. You understand that everything that God is doing in the world, He is doing in a purpose. There is a purpose for everything. And there is a purpose for the virus. Now, I am not going to contend here, I'm not going to argue whether or not the virus created in some sort of a lab in China or in another way. Here is one thing I will tell you. God allowed the virus. And there is a principle here that is important. We say it every day in the Shacharit morning prayers. He says, I am the creator of light. I am the creator of darkness. I am the creator of good. And I am the creator of evil. Even evil, even Satan have to bow down to God. You understand? Satan cannot roam around and do anything he chooses. And right now there is a virus that is sent to the world by what we call the supervision of God that carry a message with it. And this message is really important for us to understand. Now, when we're talking about pattern, and by the way, later on I will be able to sell you the book and all of that good stuff. When we talk about patterns, we have to understand that redemption itself has a pattern. There is a blueprint for everything. In the book of John chapter 5, Yeshua said, if you believe Moses and the prophets, you're going to believe me. 5:46, excuse me. The reason he said that is because the Torah itself provides us a code for redemption. The Torah is a blueprint for the future redemption. So when we study it, there is a real discussion inside Judaism whether or not the Messiah will come on the 14th of Nisan or whether it will come in the day of Rosh Hashanah. Those are two competing views in Judaism. One says that he will come in Rosh Hashanah, and the other view said he is going to come on 14th of Nisan. What's the difference between them? The rabbis concluded that he is coming on the first day of Tishrei with a sound of the shofar, with a sound of shofar. Now, what is the difference between saying Messiah come 14th on Nisan, that come in the first of Tishrei? What is the fundamental difference between those two dates? Let's look for a moment at the first redemption. The first redemption, starting in Exodus chapter 12, take place when Israel, in verse 42 specifically, Israel is being delivered out of Egypt. Now let me ask you a question. What did Israel have to do to justify this exodus? What did they have to do? What was their end of the of this deal? What did Israel have to do? Anybody? Actually, absolutely nothing. They have to do actually everything. God says in Exodus 12:42, I have set this time aside. I have set this day aside. It's called in Hebrew Leil HaShimurim, the day of vigil. It's a day that God set aside. And no matter what, he said, I have appointed this time. That was a time that Israel would. We can argue Israel was not ready for redemption. Why do you think we had to go for 40 years in the wilderness? We're not ready, but yet God delivered us as an act of loving kindness, as an act of mercy. Now, please understand, when we are talking about the future redemption, and I'm going to quote also from the New Testament, from 1 Thessalonians, that says that the Lord himself coming with a blast of the shofar. Now, ask yourself a question. What do we do in Rosh Hashanah? In Rosh Hashanah, what do we do? What is the commandment? To eat apples and honey? No. What is the commandment to celebrate? I want to celebrate it Rosh Hashanah properly. What do I have to do? Nope. To hear the sound of the shofar. There is no commandment to blow shofar. It is the blessing to hear. But there is another part to it that people are forgetting. A person have to say three things. He have to say, the Lord was king, the Lord is king, the Lord will be king forever and ever. A person who does not say this have not celebrated Rosh Hashanah. And in Rosh Hashanah we blow the shofar. Now the blowing of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah is critical because it is not a message that's going from the heaven to the earth. You see, when God came and delivered Israel from the heavens, when He sent the plagues, He sent them from above, below. You follow what I'm saying? He just sent them down. But in Rosh Hashanah, we're doing something different. We are the one who are sending the message to the heavens. We are the one who are sending message up, and the message is, hey, we are ready to inaugurate God as King. The entire feast, if you want to put it on a prophetic map, is on 1st of Tishrei. We inaugurate God as King. Then for 10 days, we're looking at this, oh, wait a second. If there is a king, there is a kingdom. And wait a second, the kingdom is not built. So 10 days later, we're standing in account for the kingdom. It's a day of judgment. We call it Yom Kippur. And then 5 days after that, in what we call the Sukkot, Feast of Tabernacle, we are asking an opportunity to reestablish again the falling tabernacle of David. To reestablish the kingdom. The entire message is the message of the kingdom. The feast is about the kingdom. And here in the first redemption, the children of Israel who did not establish any kingdom, God just took them out. Now, this is where it's becoming important. In Micah chapter 7 verse 15, God says, in the future, I will do things greater than what I have done in the first Exodus. They will resemble them when I took you out of Egypt. If you look carefully in the Hebrew, he does not say that though. He say, when you take yourself out of Egypt. Are you following what I'm telling you? There is a difference, a fundamental difference between a Tishrei redemption to a Nisan redemption. In the future redemption, we are the one who determine when the redemption will come. Not God. Yeshua has been ready for the last 2,000 years. It is you and I who determine when redemption comes. So the question becomes, what do we need to do to bring redemption to the world? I want Yeshua to come today, and so are you. What do we need to do in order to bring redemption? What do we need to do? Listen to this. It says, now, this ultimate perfection of the Messianic era and the time of the resurrection of the dead, meaning that the revelation of the Ein Sof of God, the fullness of God, light in this physical world is dependent on our action and our avodah, divine service, throughout the period of exile. Unlike the revelation of Sinai, which was initiated by God. You see, in Sinai, God has initiated it. But in the future, you and I are going to be initiating the redemption. So the question you have to ask yourself, if that's the way Judaism view redemption, is what is it that we have to do? What is it that we have to do today? And more importantly, does God have a hand? Is it all up to us? Or God also play a role in this? So think about this way. God is the one who give like a steroids. He give us steroids to expedite something. But the journey itself is something that you and I are taking. So what God is trying to expedite? You know, I had a chance to be in the largest, I think it's the largest Christian TV network 3 weeks ago on an interview about the last days. And the only thing they wanted to talk to me about is the rapture. The only thing that we're interested to talk about, Rabbi Shapira, tell us when the rapture is going to take place. You see, the issue here is that the way Christianity look at the future redemption is God is going to come and take me out of this hellhole called earth, and I'm going to go to a better place while He's going to deal with all the schmaltz that's left behind. But did it dawn on you today? Did it dawn on you today that there is a principle here? God is coming as king. Who believes that God is coming as king? Is he coming as king? Well, if he is coming as king, it means that he is going to have to come to a king, to a kingdom. He cannot come to something that is broken, to something that is faulty. If he is a king, he cannot come to some broken place. He's looking for a kingdom to be established today. So what is he doing? He is sending us a little tiny virus to expedite the reestablishing of his kingdom here on earth today. Don't look at this virus today and say, what a curse it is on my life. God often sent calamities, sent problems, sent sewers. He sent those things to correct the way, not to destroy you. You are still here. You're still alive. That's when he did not perish you. It is imagined like, a kid that did something wrong. Daddy is coming home and daddy is pulling the belt. He's about to swat the kid. He's not yet to do it. And if you think that this virus is the big SWAT, think again. It is not the big SWAT on the Tusik. It's not. It is a warning to us today to expedite and reestablish the kingdom. All of Judaism says this, Ein melech bli am. This is the foundation for the coming of Messiah, which means this. Until the people are ready to inaugurate him as king, without a kingdom, there is no king. And the kingdom that is built in the last 2,000 years in Christianity is the wrong kingdom. Amen. How do we know it? Because he hasn't come. Exactly. He is yet to return. So if we can look in the Torah and understand what is the blueprint for the kingdom, then we can reestablish the kingdom today. Because right now we have an opportunity. The message of the Besorah COVID-19 is about one word, opportunity. And God is giving you today an opportunity to establish the kingdom of God, the house of God. Look with me for a moment. When is the very first time we get the prototype of the kingdom of God in the scripture? The very first time we see that attempt to establish the kingdom of God is with Noah. Noah built an ark. Did it ever dawn on you that it took a very long time to build the ark? Did you ever ask yourself the question, why did it take Noah so long to build the ark? Although Noah followed the letter of the law, he did those things. It said he was righteous in his generation. Why did the Torah have to tell us that Noah was righteous in his generation? Why did the rabbis tell us that if you compare Noah to the time of Abraham, he will be like chopped liver? Why? You see, because Noah failed to do the most simple thing. The ark initially was established for people. Not for animals, but for people. He did not bring the people in. So then we see the second picture of the ark, and the second picture of the ark is with Avraham Avinu and Abraham. Hey, David. Good to see you. Hey, Mark. The second picture of the kingdom is in this sukkah that is being built. Do you know that on the Jewish calendar, the day that Abraham brought people into the sukkah, anybody know what day it is on the Jewish calendar? Simchat Torah, the joy of the Torah. We already seen some clues here in the text that Abraham brought people in, and that's somehow establishing a picture of the kingdom. But when is the very first time that nationally, the picture of the kingdom been established? It's with the establishment of the tabernacle. Remember Exodus chapter 25, Parashat Truma. That is when the tabernacle has been established. Now ask yourself the question. Listen to this. It says, since when the Shekinah came upon the earth, when the Holy Spirit dwelt upon the heaven, on all the earth for the first time, since the day the tabernacle was built. When the tabernacle was built, the Shekinah had a place to dwell in. And God says it. He says in Exodus 25:8, He said, build me a house so I will dwell inside of you. God has an agenda. He doesn't want a house to be built. So we say, oh God, we build you a house. No, He wants to dwell with us. So we will be neighboring with God. Even if you look at the word Mishkan, where we get the word Shekinah, Shechina, it's also related to the Hebrew word Shechen, neighbor. And more than anything today, God does not just want to come and rule. I know that's the way we view God, but that's the wrong way to view God. God wants to come towering over you and come and just live in a building and everybody worship Him. No! He wants to come and tabernacle with us. He wants to tabernacle with us. But you see, when you look at the end of the book of Malachi, he says that He is coming, Son of Righteousness, coming with healing in His wing. But did it dawn on you when you read the text? He's coming to bring healing, but also it says that He's going to burn everything. Wait a second, that doesn't make sense. If I'm going to burn everything, how am I going to bring healing? A son can burn but can bring healing. It's dependent on the vessel. The Son of Righteousness coming with healing in His wing. He's a picture of a judgment, but it's called the great and also the terrible day, because it can bring a calamity or it can bring a healing. It's depending upon you and I. We are the vessels. So what God is doing? He's sending a virus. He's sending a virus to prepare the vessel. And who is the vessel? You and I are the vessel. And the question, like when they do a surgery, like for a bone marrow, and they try to take the bone marrow and connect it to the body. Sometimes there is a match and sometimes there is no match. The same is going to do it with Yeshua. He is going to look at each and every one of us. In the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, it says when He comes, He's going to look at each and every one of us, not only to judge us, but what it says in Isaiah? He says He's going to smell us. He judges us by our fragrance. Let me ask you a question. What does He say in Corinthians? I love that. He says that we are to have the fragrance, the aroma of the Messiah. He is going to come to judge us, and He's coming based on one thing. And this is where I want to go with you for a moment today. You see, in the Torah, always read what's come before and after, but we have Parashat Mishpatim. In Deuteronomy 20, it says that He is riding to the city, to a city to destroy the city. It's a picture of Israel. He's coming to destroy Israel, and He's coming to the city, but He's coming with one word. He is going to speak to the city only one word upon His coming. And what is the word that He's going to use? It's the word Shalom. Shalom. Now you need to ask yourself in a minute, you're going to see the answer to that. Why the Messiah going to ask a question with one Hebrew word? The word Shalom. What is the meaning behind the question Shalom? What does the word Shalom mean anyway? God doesn't want to destroy you. He wants to refine you today. So He's sending this virus today in order for you to be refined. Look, if the Mishkan is the picture of the kingdom that be established, ask yourself the question, when was the Mishkan? When was the Mishkan established? If you go to chapter 25 and you go just one chapter before that, you see something amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, the golden calf. The golden calf incident. The golden calf incident, which is the worst catastrophic event maybe in Jewish history, took place, and out of the golden calf salvation come. And you see this pattern again and again in the text. That God is bringing salvation out of calamity. But we have to understand, what did the children of Israel have to do? Well, they look at the golden calf. The golden calf was not even golden. It's a mistake to think that the golden calf was golden. I want to tell you the story of the golden calf for a moment. As you know, several of the nations, from the nations, went out with Israel, right? Actually, only 2%, some say 20%, but most of the rabbis says only 2% of the Israelites went out. And some have joined Israel when they're going out. Moses go up to the mountain. Everybody where's Moses? Where's Moses? Now let me ask you a question. When they left Egypt, what did they take with them? They took the gold and they took the silver, but what else do they take with them? Anybody knows? They took something very important with them when they left Egypt. No, try again. What did Moses took? He took the coffin of Joseph. He took the bones of Joseph. Remember everybody running around getting the gold, getting the gold. And Moses says, I need the bones of Joseph. Every miracle that is taking place in the wilderness is taking place because of the bones of Joseph. Every miracle. Why? Because Moses is cleaving to the tzaddik, to the righteous, Joseph. Joseph is a picture of the Messiah. Messiah, son of Joseph. Now something went terribly wrong in this story. The New Testament mentioned two magicians, Jambrius and Yanis. Remember them? Two magicians are mentioned in the New Testament. Now you don't see a mention to them anywhere in the Torah. You don't see a mention to them anywhere in the New Testament, except those things. But in rabbinical language, and that's proof to you that Paul knew rabbinical tradition, there is a big story with those two. Why did Paul choose to specifically mention those two by name? Something went very wrong. You see, Moses go up to the mountain. They see that Moses is not coming back. So they want to create, they're scared, the people of God are scared. And listen, I'm not trying to justify the golden calf, but please understand what is the rationale behind the golden calf. The people needed a savior. They needed a Messiah. They are alone in the wilderness. The picture of the wilderness is a picture of being away from God, separate from God. They needed something to hold on to. So they took upon themselves, according to Jewish tradition, the coffin of Joseph. And the coffin of Joseph have on top of it the picture of an ox or a bull. And they put it into the fire. The people were trying to resurrect Joseph. They said, well, if we don't have Moses, at least we're going to have Joseph with us. They're trying to build a Messiah. This is going to make sense to you real quick. But then something happened. Those people who joined themselves, so-called joined themselves to Israel, Yanis and Ambrius, were putting a spell into the coffin. And as they put the spell into the coffin, when it's come out, when the calf come out, it's come out bright red. He appears bright red, ruddy color. Does that sound similar to somebody? We're just finishing reading in the Torah about Jacob and Esau. Esau was known by the name Radhi. And let me tell you something about Esau that you understand and the spiritual implication of what's going on in the world. When Esau came out, it says his name was first. He says his name is, therefore he come first, Radhi. You understand that those two words in Hebrew, first and Radhi, those are two extreme. Those are two extreme words. The word first, like we read in the Havdalah tonight, Rishon LeZion is a term that's used exclusively for God. I am the first and I am the last. This word in Hebrew, first, is a word that signified God. The word Radhi represents something that is evil, something that is violent, bloody. How can it be that a bloody one who is a bloody one, he's going to be called by the name of God? We have a problem here. And you see it here in the story of Joseph and what happened with this casket of Joseph. It started as Joseph bones, but as they put it in, it came out as something else. And the same is true on Christianity today. It started as one thing and it's ended up as something completely different. How do we get rid of it? How do we deal with this? You see, this word Radhi, it's a unique word in the Hebrew Bible. Mentioned only twice in the entire Hebrew Tanakh. Once on Esav. Oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention this. If you take the name Esav and you flip the letters, you get the word Yeshua. Ein, Shin, Yud, Vav is the same as Yud, Shin, Vav, Ein. It's the picture of Yeshua. We have taken Joseph and then the nations added something to it and you ended up with something completely else. It's like a failed science experiment. Really bad experiment. You see, this word Radhi mentioned only twice. Once on Esav. Do you know which one, where the other place it's mentioned? King David. King David is known by the name Radhi. And Esav knows the name of Radhi. By Jewish tradition, when King David was born, they took baby King David to Samuel. And he looked at him and he said, oh my God, we have another Esav on our hands. They resemble each other. Something went terribly wrong. And we have Esav right now instead of Yeshua. But you see, this failure in Jewish history had a way to deal with this. And that's where you come into the play. This is important, especially if you're not Jewish. How did we deal with this? How have we dealt with that? Remember, out of this mistake that intended good, yeah, the nation intended good today. They intended to love and worship the Messiah, but they made him something that is completely not. If it's ever dawned on you that the scripture says, a child is born unto us, a son is given to us. ויקרא שמו פלא, יועץ, אל, גיבור, אב, יעד, שר שלום. Do you know this passage in Isaiah chapter 9 and verse 6? Did you ever stop and ask yourself the question, why is the prophet Isaiah call him a child? And then why did he call him a son? He called him a child and he called him a son. Did you stop and ask a question, why is he calling him a child and then a son? When you say a child in Hebrew, it's very negative. It is a very negative term. It's like saying somebody, little boy, a boy who is not in his own full potential. There is a reality of transforming the child into the image of the son. Who else is called a child and a son in the same sentence? How about Moses? It says that when they took him, the Egyptian Pharaoh's wife took him, she took him as a child. And then she said, in the same sentence, he became a son. But not a son for Israel, a son for Egypt. Are you following what I'm telling you today? God have sent this virus today in order to rectify something that needed to be rectified in the last 2,000 years. And he will do that. How is he going to do that? What does that mean to you? How did Israel dealt with that? When they see the golden calf. Now you understand why did God tell them to sacrifice the red heifer? Because the red heifer was the picture of the red bull. They wanted to remember every time what they did to the coffin of Joseph. And today we, as Messianic believers, Jew and Gentile alike, have to remember what we have done in the last 2,000 years for the name of Yeshua. Friend, this is a message that Jewish people are receiving right now. They're receiving and they're weeping. And they're understanding. So that's what Moses did. Now, here's the interesting thing. Moses could not destroy the golden calf. Which now you know it's not golden, it's reddish calf. He could not. But what did Moses do? He took a portion of the golden calf. Because this is an important thing to understand. Inside the golden calf there was, or reddish calf, there was something holy. There was something really, 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 really holy. Which was the bones of Joseph. Just as if you dig deep into Christianity and you pull all those things from Christianity, there is something very old inside Christianity. There is something very, very, very old. The bones of Joseph, Yeshua, is buried inside Christianity. Don't tell me that Christianity is a mistake. It is not a mistake. It's just a failed science experiment. But inside of it you find holiness. And we see it here in this story, in this Shabbat. The story of reconciliation between Yaakov and Esau, we see it so clearly in this story here. How did Moses dealt with this? He took a portion that was unholy. He grinded it. Then he went to the river. He spread it like gold. The rabbi said he changed the formulation of the ox, of this golden radish. He changed it, he grinded it, and then he said to the children of Israel, go and drink it. Go and consume it. In essence, what happened in this moment is the children of Israel went and consumed the part of Esau that was unholy. Today, God wants you to consume this part of Esau in order to extract out of it the holiness. God has brought you to the movement, and this is why you are here today. He didn't bring you so that you will just learn Davidic dances or learn Hebrew or have success in your study. No, He has brought you to this movement, especially as a non-Jew, for one purpose, to extract Yeshua out of Christianity. Yes, I'm going to tell you proudly and boldly, I am telling Christians in this book to leave Christianity. Because Christianity will not stand when Yeshua comes. You see, he was Radhi, Admoni. You know what? When you look at this word Admoni in Hebrew, it's a very interesting word. It's the value in Hebrew of 111, which is a very important number in Hebrew. The number 111 equivalent to the word in Hebrew, who am I? When Yeshua comes, he's going to ask you a question. Do you know who I am? Do you know my fullness? Or do you know me as this ruddy calf? How do you know me? And everybody who does not recognize him as the Jewish Messiah, at this day it's too late. He's already going to be perished. He's going to be destroyed. And God has spoken to me this now that you heard this story of what happened to me the last 7 months. He told me that there's a dire warning for you today to live quickly. Look at what it says in Isaiah chapter 26. It says, go my people, enter your rooms and shut your doors. We're in a lockdown. What an amazing thing. And shut the doors behind you. Hide yourself for a little while until the wrath is past. For see, Adonai emerges from this place to punish those on earth for their sin. Then the earth will reveal the blood shed on it and no longer conceal its. He is telling Israel to go into the room and to shut the room. Now this is important. If you look at this word Hebraically, this word room is the Hebrew word cheder. Cheder. Chet, Daled, Reish. It's dealing with the three phases of redemption. Chet is the letter that represents chesed, grace. Daled is where we enter into right now. This is the season. Hold on a second. Here we go. Daled represents din, judgment. And what comes immediately after judgment? Reish, Rachamim. And the rabbi says to us, this is the good news, that the time of judgment is dependent upon us. It's like a woman that is going through a labor. So many scriptures talk about the birth pain of the Messiah. The woman, which is called Israel, determined how fast and how hard she can push in order for the child to come out. We are in the age of Din, but the age of Din does not have to last forever. It does not have to last for eternity. If we understand what it is we are to do today. And what we are to do today is to come out. Come out. So what do we wear right now on our faces? Masks. What do they tell us to do? To social distance. What does God want you to do right now spiritually? Come out. Come out from the old into the new, because the old is going to be destroyed. It will be destroyed. But if you come out, you can go to the city of refuge. You see, the Torah speaks about this concept of city of refuge. And God told Israel to establish 3 cities of refuge. What is the city of refuge represent prophetically? A city of refuge is a place that a person can go to who kills somebody unintentionally. For 2,000 years, Christianity has killed and murdered Yeshua unintentionally again. If you decide to leave it, no matter what your background is, if it is Catholicism, Islam, Buddhism, Hindu, whatever it is, but if you decide to leave, there is a place for you in the city of refuge. So what God is doing right now, He's preparing a way for us to leave. And I want to ask you a question about your spiritual walk for a moment. Are you in the same place you've been before the pandemic, spiritually? If you are truthful, are you in the same place? No. Are you better off? Are your family stronger? Are your relationship with your spouse stronger? Your relationship with your children stronger? Are you walking closer with the Lord? I hope that you answered yes to all of those questions, because we are seeing here the phases of Din that coming upon us. Look with me for a moment. It's very difficult to do this teaching without the slides, but I'm going to do this, try to do it with you quickly. When we look at the book of Jonah, we see this entire middle stage that's called Din, judgment, unfold within our eyes. And I explained to you just a second ago that we can make this season shorter. Remember what happened when there is a leprosy in the house. The Torah takes 2 portions to talk about a leprosy that taking place in the house. And the very first thing that the Torah tells us to do if there's a leprosy, He says to us to go inside, to enter to a time of lockdown. How appropriate it does. Everything is found in the Torah, even the pandemic. We see that the Torah says to come inside, lock yourself down. Then the Torah says what the Torah says to do, to wash your clothes. What the washing of the clothes represent? Teshuvah. But then it says that the priest is coming, who, by the way, you have another word, he doesn't call priest anymore. He called now a man of war. He called a man of war. His name is changed. He's coming as an inspector. And he's coming to the house. And if he sees that there is leprosy in the house, remember the house is a picture of the kingdom. If he says there's more leprosy, he's cutting. He says he's taking a chisel and he's starting to chop it down, to cut it down. And then he says, if there is no more to cut, he says clean. It means that the redemption is come. The Geulah has come. When the house is ready, and each and every one of us represent a living brick, a living stone. That's why it says in Ephesians chapter 2, that those stones are being built together. Why God send the pandemic? So we will be built together. So the relationship in humanity will be fixed. If we are truly preparing ourselves to receive the Messiah, and the Messiah is going to bring the new covenant. Oh, you say, oh wow, Rabbi Shapiro, but the new covenant already been given. No, it haven't. You've been lied to. Read Jeremiah 31:31 in context. Number one, it says, I'm giving it to the church. No, it doesn't. I'm giving it to the house of Judah and to the house of Israel. Number one is not a covenant for the Gentiles. Number two, he said, I will write it upon your heart. That means that the hearts have to be ready to receive it, this new covenant. And he said, they will know me from the least to the greatest of them. Those things have not yet been fulfilled. The house, the vessel, is not ready to receive. So what God is doing, He's sending right now a virus for us to prepare the house, to clean the house. And the house represents our relationship with one another. If there's one thing I can tell you that God tells me to say to the world, take care of your relationship, especially inside the body of Messiah with one another during this time. Wasn't it interesting that on the 9th of Av, just last year, as people praying on the 9th of Av, a giant stone, 2 tons, fall down on those who pray, where there is a gay and lesbian parade, at the same day on the 9th of Av in Tel Aviv? And what is coming out of the stone? A giant serpent, a pier. For 2,000 years I have not seen a serpent, I have not seen one stone falling. And the chief rabbi of Israel said, Mashiach is here. The stone that is fell from the temple, the Nachash in Hebrew, Gematria, he called Mashiach. He is here. Prepare the house. Prepare the house. The king is coming as a house inspector. It says there in the text, so clearly in Parashat Tazria, it says that when he's coming, he's going to pull the knife again. That's what I'm telling you. The period of these lockdowns, the pain, this is just the beginning of the pain. But if we take care of the house today, it doesn't need to go through pain. And people say, well, what about all the terrible prophecies I read about the Bible, all the gloom and doom? Please understand something about prophecies. A prophecy of a calamity does not have to be fulfilled. Jeremiah said that if a prophet come and give you a negative prophecy, the prophecy does not have to be fulfilled. Only a good prophecies have to be fulfilled. All the gloom and doom prophecies do not have to be fulfilled if we take care of the house. Amen. This is important for understand this. The time of the din is where we enter in with the pandemic. So how do we get through the time of the din? Remember that I told you what happened here? Israel had to grind Edom. Israel had to grind Esau in order to expose the bones of Joseph. The key today is with the nations who have to return back to expose Joseph and to repent to Joseph and to restore the image of Joseph. Look at this pattern in the book of Jonah. It says at the beginning of the book of Jonah, and the Lord has casted a mighty wind upon the sea. And there was a great tempest upon the sea, and the ship was in danger and was thinking about breaking. The Hebrew word there in the beginning of the book of Jonah is the word great tribulation. It's the same word that is used to describe Jacob's trouble. Remember what it says? It says, close the door. Now you understand what this means to close the door. There is a judgment that is coming, this middle letter Dalet, but you can overcome it quickly. Here is what you have to do though. Listen to the second phase. How did they overcome the trouble? How did the sailors overcame the trouble? Listen to what it says. Phase 2, the beginning of the fullness of the Gentiles. And it says, in their fright, the sailors cried out to each to their own God. Listen to that. They are crying to their own God. They are not crying to the God of Israel. Not yet. They flung on the ship cargo overboard to make lighter and to return to them. I want to tell you something. This is a key thing. This expression, they took the extra baggage and they threw it out, represent the beginning of the fullness of the Gentiles. The Gentiles need to throw away the garbage that is weighing them down in understanding Yeshua today. You have been given a lot of extra cargo in the church. The very first thing that you need to do today, individually, because the heavens is depending upon you. You say, Lord, I understand I've been taught a lot of wrong things, and one of the first things you can do is renounce the fathers. The church fathers are not your papas. You have a new daddy. His name is Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Aaron, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Daniel. Congratulations. You need a new family. The very first thing you need to do is to acknowledge and say, I want a new family today. When the text here said they threw away things from the boat, listen, they're still crying to their own God, but they are at least in a point. It says here in the Hebrew, Vahitlu et akelim. This word kli is important. The word kli here in Hebrew means a vessel. They look into a new vessel to bring the Geulah. You know what is the new vessel that they're going to bring the Geulah from? It's called Torah. It's called the Torah. But before one can take upon himself the Torah as a lifestyle, he needs to put the old behind. And if you have not renounced it in your life today, please renounce those tools. They take the old vessels and they threw them to the sea. But look at the response of Jonah. Jonah is not awakened to the fullness of the Gentile. Jonah represents the Jew. Jonah, called in Hebrew, the servant of the Lord. Who is the servant of the Lord? The servant of the Lord is Israel. Isaiah 41:8 telling us Jonah is a picture of the Jews. The sailors are the picture of the Gentiles, and we are together in this tribulation. Look at this. What's happened next? The fullness of the Gentiles intensify. God is taking one Gentile. He's taking one Gentile, and he recalled the Rav Achovel. He is the sailor. He is representing the called out. Those from the church who are being called out. And this one come and he is provoking Jonah. He is provoking Jonah. And so he says to Jonah, the captain went out and cried out. And he says to Jonah, get up, Jew. How can you sleep so suddenly? Up, call upon your God. Perhaps the God will be kind to us and they will not let us perish. He recognized that Jonah has a role to play in the salvation. The church today do not understand, oh, God is going to deal with those Jews later on. Oh yeah, He's going to deal with Jews. We're going to go to do Hava Nagila. We're going to do, what's going on with this thing? Hold on a second. Go. This thing is, I'm getting too excited with this thing. The Jews are going to do Hava Nagila, and later on, no. The Gentile have a job. He has to go up and says, listen up, call upon your God. Our Jewish people today, they put more trust in a vaccine than putting trust in God. Do you know that? You know, Israel today bought double the vaccination from Moderna. We have a population of 7 million people. They secured 8 million vaccination, ladies and gentlemen. A vaccination that who knows what is it even going to do to your body. Why? It's because Israel rather to trust in man than to trust in God. But here we've seen that there's going to be a called out from the sailor, from the Gentile, who will go and to provoke Jonah to jealousy, to provoke the Jews to jealousy. Yeshua spoke about those who are coming out in the parable of the 10 virgins. Remember that 5 virgins come out. They're coming out. Your job today is to come out and challenge the Jewish people today to call upon God. Don't make them Christians. Challenge them to call upon God. But this is not the end of the statement. Look what this. He says to him, tell me, who has brought you this misfortune on you? What is your business? Where have you come from? What is your country? And what kind of people are you from? He is interrogating Jonah. Our Jewish people forgot their calling. We forgot our calling to be the light to the nations. Jonah is not in his fullness. And by the way, neither is the sailors. They are going crazy, but they are starting to waken up. But there's a remnant here start to really and listen to the answer of Jonah. Jonah says, I am a Hebrew. He replied, I worship the Lord of the God of heavens who have made sea and the land. Although he's not in his full walking, he is reminded who he is. Somebody need to remind the Jewish people today who God called them to be. And you know, the fact that you yourself coming out, that means that somehow you are going to provoke the Jewish people forward. And look what the people did. The man, look at the conclusion of the Fullness story. Then the men feared the Lord greatly. They offering a sacrifice to the Lord, and they made vows. What? They made sacrifice. The Hebrew word here is not sacrifice, the word zevach. They made a Jewish sacrifice inside the boat. How did they know how to do those things? How did they know how to make a Jewish sacrifice inside the boat? Because the fullness has come upon them. Jonah has taught them. You want to overcome it? Don't today take upon yourself the Jewish identity. You cannot have one foot in the church and another foot in the house of Israel. You have to choose. What will you choose today, people of God? You cannot have a Hanukkah bush that looks like a Christmas tree. You have to make choices today. Jonah have to teach you, and God need to raise Messianic Judaism today. So somebody will, but are you willing to learn? Are you willing to come out? Because your coming out mean that the trouble will come to an end. You see what I'm saying? In the Torah portion this week, in the end of the reconciliation story with Jacob, we read a tragedy. The story of Yaakov and Esau is a tragic story. Although it seems like it's ended well, but I can tell you something, the story does not end very well. All of his life, all of the life of Jacob, he's waiting for this moment. Who is Yaakov? Yaakov's name is changed to Israel. Who is Esau? Esau, Edom, represent Christianity. Israel and the nations reconciling. We're seeing a picture of a complete reconciliation. But a reconciliation never took place here. And why did it take place? Did it not take place because Yaakov, or did it didn't take place because Esau? And the answer is both. The both are guilty party. You see, the problem here with Yaakov is finally he sees his brother. And remember, he go for 14 years, he's working. He's just preparing for this. This is his moment. This is the moment of his life, the highlight of Jacob's life. But as he's in this highlight of Jacob's life, finally he sees his brother and they're kissing each other. But if you look closely in the Torah, And again, I don't have time to teach all of this today, but he doesn't really try to kiss him. Esau tried to kill him. In Hebrew it says, Vayinashku, Vayinashchu, which actually means that he came to bite him on the neck. You know, the word bite is the same word as the word kiss. Neshika and neshicha. He come like a Dracula. He coming to him like, ah! He come to him like a little Dracula. Ah! Yeah, that you see that if next time you open the Torah scroll, you'll see it so clearly inside the Masoretic text. It was not a sincere kiss. He tried to kiss him on the neck, but as he tried to kiss him on the neck, his teeth turned black because he understands that he cannot overcome Jacob. Esau cannot overcome Jacob. No way. So what ended up happening? He had given up Judah's kiss. There is a Judas kiss. And how do we know that it was not a real kiss, it was a Judas kiss? Look at the very next thing. Next thing in the story. He says to him, Yaakov, I want to walk with you. Come on, man. I want to walk with you. There's something that happened. Yeah, Esau is insincere, but there's something that happened enough that Esau willing to walk with him. But what was the response of Yaakov? No. You go ahead. You go and we'll catch later. And then he gave him a promise. You see, Yaakov is giving a promise to Esau. He says, I'm going to go to Edom. I am going to go to Edom, and I am going to bring you out of Edom. Again, Edom is a picture of Christianity. Esau is Yeshua. Yaakov have a job to bring Edom, goodness, out of Christianity. Yes, there is good in Christianity. Yes, there is good in Esau, but it has to be pulled out like the golden calf. The goodness of Joseph both have to be pulled out. Joseph had only one task in his life, to rectify Yaakov. To rectify Esau. Yaakov had only one job in his life, to rectify Esau. Because when he rectified Esau, he himself getting rectified. If we can pull Yeshua out of Christianity, we as Jews are getting the benefits. Are you following what I'm saying? But he didn't do it. And the mistake of Yaakov here was in his passivity. Because he said, no, you go ahead. So he says, okay, I will travel with you, I will walk with you. That's what Esau said to Yaakov. And then he says the word lenegdecha. The text says lenegdecha, which actually means against you. I'm going to do those things, but I'm really want to do those things. Yaakov, do you know why Yaakov said no to him? I'll tell you the secret why Yaakov said no to him. Because Esau wanted to bring Yaakov to Edom. There is nothing worse when Jews who come to know Yeshua and become Christians. There is nothing wrong in that. There is nothing worse than that. Nothing worse. And that's really what Esau's plot is today. He is bringing him. He said, come on, Yaakov, come to Edom. We have much better things. We have a better houses. We have more flocks. And he says to him, but Yaakov is smart. He says to him, Esau says to him, I have much to offer to you. Did you saw that what was the response of Yaakov? The response of Yaakov was, I have everything. You have much. I have everything. But you see, Yaakov failed. And then it says in the end of the text, and Esau went back to Edom. But when he say Esau went back to Edom, it does not say like walking back. It's mean he went back to his wicked ways. Yaakov has a job. And his job is to pull Esau out. Listen to what the rabbi said about this encounter. This is Nachmanides, the great Spanish rabbi Nachmanides, who says, all of those works of the fathers of Jacob is a sign for us for the future. And it is written for the future, for the time of redemption. It is a sign for us. What is the job of Yaakov today? Is to pull Esau, the goodness out of Esau. the goodness out of the golden calf, to pull it, purify it, cleanse it. Look what is happening right now in the world. We have experienced a messianic revival unlike any other revival. I've been in ministry for almost 20 years. And I have not seen more amount of people coming out of Christianity into the messianic faith than I've seen in the last 6 months. I am telling you. They're coming out. They're leaving Esau behind. They're leaving Edom behind. We need you to come. Because you see, when Yaakov is born, he's born holding to the heel of Esau. Did it dawn on you that if Esau does not born, neither does Yaakov? Their birth represents their fullness. The Esau birth represents the fullness of the nation. The birth of Yaakov represents the fullness of the Jews. And this term, Yaakov and Esau, there is something that you have to understand about this. If you take the word Esau, remember I told you that it says in Deuteronomy chapter 20 verse 10, when the Messiah came, he asked one question. He said one word. It's the word Shalom. The word Shalom in Hebrew equivalent to the number 376, which is equivalent to the name Esau. It's equivalent to the name Esau. He is asking us a question when he says Shalom. Do you know me as Esau? Or do you know me, Esau, as Christianity? Or do you know me as Esau with a yod? If you add Esau with a yod, you get the name David, son of Jesse. You follow what I'm telling you? When he was born, he grabbed him by the heel with his hand. Yaakov had something to give Esau. He's the hand. What is the Hebrew word for hand? It's the word yad. The word yad comes from the letter yod. How does he become Esau? Full, also known as the Mashiach, by Yaakov giving something to Christianity. Judaism has something to give to Christianity. This is a yad. How many fingers do I hold in my hand? This is yad. How many fingers? 10. How many commandments there are? When Yaakov gave and bring back and give Esau the Torah, Esau become full. The only way that Esau can become full by returning to the covenant that is given to Yaakov. But you see, Yaakov is not being born until Esau is being born. That's why today your greatest mandate is to return to the covenants. Not for your salvation, for Israel's salvation. For Israel merit. Today the question is, are we returning back? When he giving this, are you following this? I know it's very difficult to do this without slides, but are you guys following this today? Yaakov needs Esau. Esau needs Yaakov. Just as Jonah needed those malachim, those sailors, and the sailor needed Jonah. We need each other today. And that's why in the Torah, in conclusion, in Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 12, in the beginning, in Deuteronomy 7:12, in the beginning of Parashat Ekev, God uses this word Ekev. Ekev, like the word Yaakov. Ekev is like the word Jacob. He just added the yod. But the word Ekev also speaks about a delay, being to the. He said, I have set aside this inheritance to do, but there is going to be a delay. And then God in the next verse telling Israel how they are going to overcome the delay. How did they overcome the judgment, the time of the din? How are they doing it? He said, take care of the mishpatim. Not the mitzvot, not the chukim, but the mishpatim. The mishpatim has to do with one thing, our relationships with one another. Did it dawn on you that God has sent the virus to teach us, love your neighbor as yourself? so that we will become loving, so that we will establish a house to represent each authentic brick. You are an authentic brick, ma'am. You are an authentic brick. And those bricks are going to have to be fitting together in order to him to dwell here. And he says, when Israel come to the land in Deuteronomy 27, as they are entering to the Jordan, the very first thing that God told Israel to do is what? Take giant stones. Take giant stones. And he doesn't say take them, he say resurrect them. Resurrect those stones. What is the Hebrew word stone? The Hebrew word stone is the word Evan. It's a prefix, is the word the Av, the father, and the Ben, the son. He is telling the Israel to resurrect the name of the Father and to resurrect the name of the Son. But why did he say to take such a giant stones? What was written upon the stones? How did Israel is commanded to resurrect the name of the Father or the Son? It is important to know what was written upon the stone. In 70 different languages, every mitzvah from the 613 commandments was written in every... You see? You see what happened? This is what happened. We don't have good foundation. That is another lesson. Yeah, take this thing. I'm going to cast a demon out of this thing. I don't need this thing. My goodness. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. You take this thing out of it. Israel was commanded to take each one of those giant stones and write the Torah in 70 languages so that the nations will come and will come to the Torah in order for the stones to be completed in resurrection. And who is resurrection to the Torah? The name of the Father and the name of your Son are resurrected through this. Israel have one job today, is to teach Torah to the world. You know, I had a yeshiva contact me in Israel. They read the book. He says, hey, when? How do you teach Gentiles so much Torah? We never thought about this. Now we're going to do what we're doing. We're going to be your competition. You know what I said? I said, good. You're doing your job as the Jew. You're doing what you're supposed to do as a Jew. Give the Torah to the nations. Because if we do not give them to the nation, how will resurrect the name? What about you? Do you want to meet the Son? Do you want to meet today the Son? It starts with you today. This virus is not about China. It's about you today. It's about the fact that in each and every one of us, you know, in the Torah portion this week, we see something shocking happening. Yaakov about to face Esau. But before he faced Esau, he is meeting with this angel. And he's fighting with the angel. But we have a problem in the story. If we are saying that he fought against an angel, we have a problem with the verse before that. Because the verse before that said that he was there alone. If he is there alone, how can he be fighting with somebody else? The rabbi explained to us that Yaakov was fighting against himself. Because inside of Yaakov, there was also a part of Esau. And you need to understand that they're twins. And inside of you today, there is also a klippah. There is a piece of the golden cup that is found in each and every one of us. Each and every one of us have a piece of Esau inside of it. And what he had to do, before he dealt with the physical Esau, he had to deal with the spiritual Esau. And if you look today, honestly, in your life today, my life, all of us life in this room, we know that there are klippot that God wants us to shed today. So what is he doing? He's moving you. He is moving you spiritually. He's moving you physically. He's sending you a virus so that you will get off your tuchas and you move outside spiritually, outside your comfort zone, because we are building the wrong house with a different set of standards of what God says. He doesn't want you to be outside the house. He wants you to be inside the house. He wants each and every one of us to be this authentic stone inside the house. The question is, are you willing to be moved out? He says in the Torah that if you don't move out, he will take the chisel and he will cut the stone. Because the house of God will be pure. Because Yeshua will dwell only in a pure house. He will not come to a deformed home. Where did the church has got the idea that he's coming to fix all the problems? Even Yeshua in the book of Acts 1:6 says to the disciple, why are you looking at me? I've given you a tool. It's called the Holy Spirit. Go fix your own problems. Don't look at God to fix your problems. He is giving you the tool. The tool is Yeshua HaMashiach. He is giving you the Holy Spirit. But it is you who are going to fix your own problem and prepare the house for God. So He sent us right now this virus so you will shed out, completely shed Edom from your own life. See, he's fighting so hard. But then, as the battle goes, he says, hey, the day almost come. Let me go. The day almost come. Remember what the day represents in the context. The day represents, he's not letting him go. He's holding on to him until the daybreak. The day, the shachar, represent the geulah, the redemption. And your job today is not to get scattered around, not to go around, no, your job is to hold on. Yeshua says in Matthew, you are to hold on until the end. I have a word for you today. Don't let go. Don't let go. Because God is going to make you an authentic brick in the house of the living King. But you yourself today have to shed out those tools. Throw them out of the boat. In a minute, I'm just going to pray that those who have the tools that are not the authentic tools. Let me tell you, there's only one authentic tool. It's the Holy Spirit and the Torah. There's no other tools. The Holy Spirit and the Torah. And the Spirit and the Torah work together. They always work together. And if today you're willing to say, God, I am a mess. I have a klipot. I am dealing with the klipot. Those husks, those shells. I cannot shake them off. And I want you to tell you something. When Jacob left, remember, he is leaving Beersheba and is going to meet Esau. He's going to prepare to meet Esau later on. But he's going from Beersheba all the way to Haran. Remember, when he leaves, he doesn't say he left. He left a place called Be'er Sheva. The word Sheva, if you put the dot on the other side, a little bit of Hebrew, Sheva, you put the dot on the other side, you get the word Sova. Sheva and Seva. You know what it means to be Sava? When you're Savea, you are full. He left a place of spiritual comfort to go to a land called Haran. Haran, in Hebrew, Haron means hell. He leave a place of great comfort to go to hell. Why? Because God is found even in hell. And He wanted to show him this place that He called the place. Remember, He took him to the place where he lay upon himself. Have you ever asked yourself the question, why he put his head on a stone? Jacob is dirt poor. He is so dirt poor because the son, according to Jewish tradition, the son of Esau, robbed Jacob from everything. He have nothing. He's so poor. He lay his head upon a stone. But it is an authentic stone. It is the stone that have the name the Father and the name of the Son. It doesn't matter what's going to happen with the economy or the stock market, all those things. If you are found in the place, it doesn't matter. Take your mind today. Ease your minds. So many people are worried about the economy, what is going on. I'm going to take you on what's going on. You are going to come out in the name of Yeshua. You will come out of the place of fullness. Oh, I know the Lord. That's what Christians think today. I already know the Lord. I can't wait to go to heaven. That's all what they want to talk about, going to heaven. But are you full? Are you full? Are you walking in your fullness? Because it is the fullness that comes only out of calamity. that's going to bring Mashiach to the world. So the question I have for you today, are you willing to go out? He didn't say he left dragging feet. He said he left in power. He left Beersheba in power with nothing. But he got to the place and he said, this is the place. And what does he see in the place? He see a ladder. And he see a ladder of people going up and people are going down. And people always read this passage and they think you see a bunch of angels going up and going down. That's nonsense. That's not what Jacob see in his dream. The scripture said that he see malachim going up and down. And the rabbis of Israel explain that he see his future descendants. You and I going up to the heaven and bringing heaven down. Because there is a kingdom in heaven. And God is calling you to establish the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven. That's why we say on our tip-top, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh Adonai Tzevaot. Why do you think He's moving you? He's moving you in a place that you will be able to get to the ladder. That's why the word ladder in Hebrew equivalent in Gematria to the name Sinai. That's why the Hebrew word ladder have another name. It's called the lamp. The lamp of God called the ladder. You want to know what is it? He's seeing the picture of the lamp. If you know the Lamb today, if you know Yeshua today, you also will know the Torah today. Because the Lamb and the Torah are one in the same. They both call the letter in Jewish literature. Do you want to experience today the letter? Look at this. He has to go from a place called Bethel, to a place called hell. That doesn't sound a lot of fun for me. Because it's a dissension. But you know where God met him? He met him in the journey. He will meet you in the journey up to the house of the Lord. Leave and come home. My message to you this evening is simple. God has brought this upon you today, upon all of us, because we want all of us to join the family of Israel. And I will conclude with this. I know this is extremely long lecture, and I don't know how long, when I will be able to do this again. It took many years to get me here to do this. It took a pandemic to get me to do this. Praise be to God for that. But I want you to think about this plan. Because this message called the plan of God, and I want to give you the plan of God right now. In the beginning of Jeremiah 31, you know the conclusion of Jeremiah 31 is the giving of the new covenant and writing it upon our heart. But the question you need to ask yourself, how do we get there? How do we get there? And look what he says here. He says, in the beginning of Jeremiah 31:1, at this time, declare Adonai. This is the beginning. We all want to jump to Jeremiah 31:31, but you need to read it in context and understand the plan of God. At this time, declare Adonai, I will be God over all the families of Israel, and they will be my people. And he used this term, families. God loves families. He wants to reunite the families of the earth together. And he said, I'm going to tell you, I am going to do this. And look what he says. A few verses later, he says, I will build you. And I hope you will proclaim this verse today in this conclusion upon your life. I will build you firmly again, O maiden Israel. And I want to stop now. I want to touch on something controversial. He does not use the term Judah. He uses the term Israel. And then he changed it and used the term Ephraim to describe this. In the book I explain it to you systematically and in a methodical way. That when he's talking about here Israel and Ephraim, the entire message is not a message to the Jewish people. No way. He's not talking about the Jewish people here. He's talking about a group of people who have been scattered, have been gone away, and they, by the way, they have a name, Ephraim. Yeshua, son of Yosef, he is called Ephraim today. Every person in the room today who believes in the atoning power of Mashiach, he's called Ephraim. It's not some tribes running around. It is something that you have to understand on a midrashic level. Anybody who accepts Yeshua today as Mashiach, he's representing Ephraim because he understands the atoning power of Mashiach. This is who Israel and who is Ephraim. And he is promising something here to the Gentiles. He said, Gentiles, I am not done with you. I am not done with you. In a second, you see, he's speaking to Jewish people. To Jewish people, he refers as Yaakov. He referred to them as Yaakov. But he is not talking to Jewish people. He says, I will build you firmly again, O maiden Israel. Again, you shall take the timbrels and go forth in the rhythm of dancers. Why will they do it? Because they're about to be returning. They're about to be restored. And he uses here the term avnech. I will build you. Listen to what it says. In Ephesians chapter 2, it says, you have been built on the foundation made out of the emissaries and the prophet with Mashiach. You want to be built again? You want to be built new? Who wants to be built new today? You want to be built? Here's the equation for you. You need to have part of 3 stones. The stones are first the emissaries. Who are the emissaries? Those called the apostles, those called the shlichim. They move according to the power of the Spirit, all living as Jews. Who is the prophets? Prophets is a code word for Moses. Anybody who think in the room that the apostle did not keep Torah? Think again. Torah and the power of the spirits go together. With Yeshua, he's in the middle. If you want to be established again, you do need Torah in your life, but you also need the power of the Ruach in your life. The both have to work together. Listen to what the Radak says. He said the community, this community that is scattered, called Israel, okay, is like a broken building. The church today is like a broken building that is in ruins with scattered stones and trees. When the house will be rebuilt, they will ingather again. They will ingather again. This Shabbat in the Haftarah portion in Obadiah, it's telling us that a remnant from Esav will be ingathered again to the Negev. Are you ready to be ingathered today? You cannot bring Christianity to the house of Israel. I am telling you today, you have an opportunity for this. And how is it going to happen? It says, for lo, listen to the next verse. For the day is coming. Every time you see in the text, the day is coming. He's talking about the days, acharit hayamim, the latter days. When the watchman shall proclaim on the heights of Ephraim. Here you go. When you see the term heights of Ephraim, he's talking about the Messianic believers. Those who follow in Yeshua the Messiah. And Messiah, son of Joseph. And what he will say in those days. Come, let us go up to Zion, to the Lord our God. God have a message for you today, and I hope you are saying the same message. Come, let us go up. Let us go up to Jerusalem. Let us leave the old city behind and go forward. And this group of people have a name. They're called the watchmen. But what is the word watchman in Hebrew, ladies and gentlemen? What is the word watchman? It's called Ephraim. But what's the word watchman mean in Hebrew? The word watchman in Hebrew is the word Notzrim. That's where we get the word Nazareth. That is the word in Hebrew language for Christians. It's right here in the Bible, right under our nose. The word Notzrim is come from the book of Isaiah, from the word Netzer. But a shoot shall grow out of the stump of Jesse. Here you go. A twig shall sprout from his stalk. Brother and sister, God is going to call a remnant from Christianity to be the watchmen who say, we are coming back home. And the question I have for you, will you be part of this remnant? Is this virus not going to move you? Nothing will. The very next verse, here you go. He's dealing now with the Jewish people, and it says, so says the Lord, cry out in joy, Yaakov. What was the response to the Jewish people when he see the Gentiles who wants to come on in and grab to the tzitzit of the Jew? Oh, no, Gentiles, don't come in here. Don't come here. Oh, you want to keep Shabbat? No, Gentiles, don't do it. You want to keep kosher? Don't do that, Gentiles. God help us. God help the sins of the Messianic Jewish movement. God help us for robbing and sinning against the believers in Mashiach, Ephraim. You have to understand the battle. Why this is a book you have to get into your hand. Because I am calling the Gentiles to come and learn and partake in the Torah. Not for the sake of your salvation, but for the sake of the corporate salvation of the house of Israel. The two have to become one. Esau and Jacob has to become one. And Yaakov have a job here. And the job is shout in the crossroad for the nations. That's what the prophet is saying. Shout in the crossroad for the nations. Which means that Israel, the Jewish people, need to go out. That's why I'm here this evening as a Jewish rabbi to come out and tell you, we're meeting you in the crossroad. You need to come out. But your coming out today is going to be so difficult and so painful. Because you're just not coming out yourself. You're coming out of your ancestry. You're coming out of your upbringing. You're coming out of a system. Yaakov have a job to come out and meet you halfway through and say, save, O Lord, your people, the remnant of Israel. God help us. God help us. Look what will be the response in the very next verse. This is the roadmap, friend. They shall come with weeping. Not a weeping of sadness, a weeping of joy. And with compassion will I guide them. I will lead them to the streams of water by a level road where they will not stumble. Right now, in the name of Yeshua, every person coming out today of Christianity, I just prophesy and declare upon you today in this holy Motzei Shabbat, you will not stumble. But I also have a warning for you. Do not go out without Jacob. That's called the Hebrew roots movement. Oh, we want the Hebrew Yeshua. Oh, but the Jews, no. I recently came back from India. We had a huge event. We had hundreds of pastors who came against us. Hundreds. And they said, we love Jesus. We don't need the Jew. No. It's a package deal, friends. If you're coming out, you're not coming out to the Hebrew roots. You are coming out to the Jewish roots. Don't speak against rabbinical Judaism. Don't speak against the rabbi. Don't speak against the Talmud. Don't speak against our tradition. You're coming back to reconcile with Yaakov. In the text here, in the story of Yaakov and Esau, we say that Esau ran to Jacob. You need to run to Jacob. Even a Jew does not believe in Yeshua. I'm going to be careful here and tell you, even a Jew that does not believe in Yeshua have a great benefit for you. You can learn even from a Jew who doesn't know Yeshua today. But look what God says. Here's a surprise. The question, who God love more? Does God love more Yaakov? Or does he love more Esau? Does he love more Ephraim? Or he love more the natural branch? Does he love more the grafted in branch? Or does he love more the natural branch? I'm not anti-Semitic, friend. I can't be anti-Semitic. I'm Jewish. A son of Holocaust survivor. But I'm going to tell you what the Bible says. For I am ever a father to Israel. Ephraim is my firstborn. God loved the Gentiles.